So, the day has finally come where I respond to a little bit of commentary Destiny did. This is actually an excerpt from a conversation he was having with Alex, of whom I have had a couple of conversations with, actually, on his channel Playing with Fire, if you guys never caught that. My friends, the day will come where Destiny and I will speak to one another. The day will come where we will battle each other intellectually. Until that day comes, however, you'll have to settle with these video responses I'm going to be doing. Because he said a couple of different things I've taken umbrage with. This being one of them. It's a great jumping off point. And I highly encourage you guys to go and watch the rest of the video. It's like an hour-long conversation between him and Alex. But there's a section here that perked my ears up. And since this is the second video of my series where I'm discussing this nice guy phenomena again, an interesting question was begged to me when I heard Destiny talk about this. And to not keep you here too long, that question was a little obvious. The question is, why exactly is it wrong to be nice to have sex with women? Particularly, this is a male to female thing, because no one has ever asked the question, why is it wrong for women to be nice to have sex with men? People have accepted socially that it is a given that men are going to pursue women sexually. And people have accepted socially that it is a given that women are not going to want to have sex with men. Which is goofy and quite an interesting and strange two-step when you see that women do indeed like having sex with men. And they don't just like having sex with men, they'll get real raunchy about it too. And they'll write all their little erotica and all their different stuff. It's interesting. It's this weird friction that's going on, this weird doublespeak. Where on the one hand, again, women don't want to have sex with men, but then you see all their different, like, erotica, Instagram posts, TikToks, just their story time sometime, their existence in pornography from start to finish, and you just get really confused by the messaging. So much so that, again, an interesting question has to be begged. On the one hand, we're told by our culture, generally speaking, that sex is a casual activity that doesn't really have to be that serious. You don't have to be in a committed relationship, let alone a full-on marriage, to participate in sex. Sex can be so casual that you can even open up your relationship. And as long as you have open and effective communication, it's fine for you to have sex with whomever you want, as long as your partner is okay with it. And sometimes your partner can just have to deal with their jealousy, which, honestly, I think that kind of might say something, but, table that discussion for another time. The point is, you can do a lot of casual things with sex. You can hook up with someone randomly at a college party. You can hook up with someone over Tinder, Bumble, Hinge. You can hook up with someone at the library. Well, not at the library, but you can find them and then hook up with them. If sex is such a casual thing that has no strings attached to it and is just a more or less bowel movement to be done, it doesn't have to have any attachments to it, then let's ask an interesting question. Why is it wrong to be nice to have sex with women? So before we tackle that question, let's listen to a little bit of Destiny here. Destiny is going to explain that there is a little bit of a difference between genuine interest in a woman and the nice guy syndrome. Now that might sound a little bit random, but it really isn't. So I'm going to let him go.
Consideration. There's a difference between the nice guy syndrome is something different than just being a considerate person. And I think it goes to show in terms of like what the nice guy thing is. Like if you're being nice to somebody and the goal is to get something out of them, that's not really being considerate. And I think people can kind of tell.
Now, here's the thing. For the most part, that might actually be kind of true. That people can tell when you're being fake nice, or when you're just having pleasantries in order to get something out of them. I'll give you a great example, a little bit of a story time from my high school days. There's this one girl that used to ask me for $1 at lunch, but before she would ask me for the $1 in order to get like some cookies or some whatever the bloody hell she needed to go to eat, she would always have some conversation with me. Some ask me about my day, ask me how I'm doing, check in on me, flirt with me a little bit, but ultimately the question was obviously going to come, did I have $1 for her? And so it was obviously fake, and she was obviously using me. I mean, eyes wide open now as an adult, So how many years has it been? 10? Well over 10. 10, 12, 11? I don't know. It doesn't matter. Eyes wide open. Clearly she's manipulating me. Clearly she just wants my dollar. Clearly this is all buttering me up, using her flirtatious skills to just get something. That's a little obvious. And even at the time when I was like 15, I just kind of soaked in the free attention. I kind of knew what the deal was, but in that way, it was, to be honest with you, a really light form of prostitution at its most innocent level, trading her flirtation and sexual attention to get some money. Not good, even at such a young age. But the long and short of it is, there is obviously the fakeness and the nonsense that's coming from someone pretending to be nice to get something. Usually it's temporary, or it's usually not something that's found in a consistent friendship. Usually people that act like this only come around when they need something. So when you're trying to reach out to them, they're oftentimes rather scarce. So it is kind of easy to tell that. Here's the problem though. Do nice guys, TM, really behave that way? Do nice guys really behave in a manner where they only are nice to the woman for like an hour or so and then they have sex and then they just don't talk to her anymore? Or is it that this method isn't even actually effective to have sex from start to finish in the first place? In fact, if this method of subterfuge was effective, pretending to be nice to have sex with women, why would any of them need to talk to, well, since Alex is the one having the conversation with Destiny, why would any young man ever need a dating coach if, like, you could just intuit this obvious pretending of just being nice to be with women? But, again, hasn't every single young man come to the conclusion or noticed that, like, being nice to women doesn't get them to want to have sex with you in the first place, hence why they're on the internet from start to finish to complain about this? In fact, it just doesn't seem to track in reality that men, by and large, are operating in a fake pretending way to have sex with women. Because if they were, they would see very clearly that it is not an effective way to do that.
I think this is how a lot of kind of the weird, I'm not calling all incels rapists, but that's how a lot of weird rapey stuff happens in streamer communities, where it'll be like, I bought a hotel for you, I bought airplane tickets for you, and you flew out to this convention to meet me, and you're not fucking me. Like, what the fuck? I was being so nice and considerate. And it's like, you weren't really being a considerate person at all. You were just trying to do things to, like, the person.
Now, there's probably a lot of more complex things that are happening here. One, there should be a clear, obvious implication of, like, being flown out and going to hotels and, like, having sex that are culture established in, like, really frivolous, like, sexual encounters, like in casual sexual encounters. Like, being flown out is a verb. It's a term that some models on Instagram use to describe when rich men contact them to obviously, like, escort them without so many words. Like, there's a clear, strong implication. If you're a young lady and you don't understand what all those gestures are for, I'm gonna have to ask, where have you been? Like, were you born in Kansas and raised on a farm? Like, where are you? Now, here's the thing. Destiny is right. Well, his implication is so far right that just because a dude pays for your hotel and flies you out doesn't mean that a woman is obligated to have sex with him. That would be like, what, obvious prostitution. But, again, we ask the critical question. Why can't a man do these things for the expressed opportunity to have sex with a woman? Like, why doesn't it make a woman want to have sex with them? Or, like, why is it wrong to make the attempt to do these gestures to have sex? Again, if sex is something that is indeed casual and something that has no emotion tied to it, no value beyond the two people that are, like, participating in it, well, what's wrong here? Now, of course, there are lots of reasons that I could come up with to suggest why there's a problem here, but let's just for a second factor in, again, our culture. Because, to be honest with you, there are a lot of young ladies that will hook up with men the day they met, like 2 hours later. There's a lot of young ladies that will indeed do the whole flying out thing and have sex with their favorite influencer. So the precedent has been established that this is a thing that can happen, this is a thing that does occur. But more than the fact that this is something that does happen and, well, does occur, let's ask again some very important questions. Why is it okay to have sex with a man because he's tall and attractive and funny? Like, you don't really know his intentions, but it was really nice to meet him and flirt with him, and then you're having sex with him like 2 hours later. Like, why is it okay to do that, but it wouldn't be okay to have sex with someone if they were really being nice to you to never see them again? If someone is like really nice to you, like, what's the difference than if someone was just physically attractive? What if someone was physically attractive and they were a jerk and then you still had sex with them? Like, why was that okay? But again, it's wrong if someone is nice to you to have sex with you. If sex, again, is a casual activity to do, and it's not supposed to be that serious, or it doesn't have to be, why is trying to barter for it all of a sudden problematic? Now, of course, there's many reasons I could come up with, but to the mind of the liberal who has made sex such a casual, albeit frivolous thing to do, something that is just meh, why is it wrong to do any of this stuff in order to have sex? Especially when you factor in that women will have sex for less. Lots of people will have sex for less. Sometimes not even being under the influence of drugs and alcohol. Sometimes just because they're really horny that day, or the person they want is really attractive. So we could probably sprinkle in that some people probably make concessions for really high value individuals. People who are really attractive or have a lot of status or have a lot of money bypass all of the defensive mental barriers I guess young ladies have, because it's an experience that she's never really going to be able to get. And due to having a lack of virtue, or like just honor in general, she's going to indulge, we can assume. So essentially, it's not something normal, it's something abnormal, because she encountered one of these high-value males that just kind of overstats the game, so to speak. But again, the question is, if it's fine for her to indulge because this is such a rare opportunity for her, why is it not okay for a man to be nice so he can indulge in the same opportunity with the lady? Like, the thing that's interesting is that the implication is always that these males are faking being nice. But high-value males aren't faking being nice. They also, I mean, first of all, how many people really first encounter individuals and then just treat them poorly? Like, no one really does that. Like, no one really operates like that, where they're just rude and mean and inconsiderate in their first impression. Usually people are very flirtatious, they're kind, usually people are over-considerate, especially on dates. That's what everyone does. But for some reason, it works for the high-value male, but if it's a nice guy, women can see through it easily. But wait a minute, what if it's the high-value male that's trying to get a girl to spin on his plates? Why is it again okay for her to indulge with that guy, but it's not reasonable for her to indulge with the nice guy? I guess incels would probably have a really obvious, simple answer, but the point of asking these questions is more to get you guys to think, more than me to tell you what to think. Because I don't think a lot of people, and how many times do I use the word think, really are considering these questions when they are applying this advice and talking to young men about these issues.
And it's like, you weren't really being a considerate person at all. You were just trying to do things to like the person.
Now, that's absolutely true. And if you're projecting that onto him, like let's say the hypothetical nice guy is indeed doing a whole bunch of nice things just so he could have sex with the woman. Well, high-value males aren't any different. In fact, most of any dating coach is not actually trying to train young men to be like good fathers or like obtain virtue so they can be in strong, stable relationships with women and like have families with them. It's just teaching them what is the best effective method of which to have sex with women. Whether it's the old-time mystery method of like being a stand-outish type of dude that's just kind of like weird and out there to give the woman an experience, or it's the more, I guess you could say, modern interpretation of reaching high status, or at least the perception of being high status by being handsome and attractive and like trying to have some type of like style or anything to just make you look like you just appear to be better than most people. Like, either way it goes, these are all surface level things to get the woman to be attracted to you, but not deeper, more investing things to actually have a long-term relationship. The irony is, being a kind person is, though. Being a kind person does and has a lot more effectiveness in having a long-term relationship than all of the surface level attributes of the mystery method and the more modern method of pickup artistry currently. So again, we have to ask, because the correct answer is that neither is okay. It's not okay for high-value males to use their status to convince women to have sex with them, as much as it's not okay for nice guys to be nice in order to have sex with women. That would be incredibly consistent. But if you're not going to go the extra mile to say that having a lot of money and overstating in order to convince a woman off rip to sleep with you is a problem, why is being nice to the woman to sleep with her a problem? Because you're not actually nice? Well, neither are the pickup artists or the high value males. Women still pick them though. Which would mean that not actually being nice isn't actually the problem with the nice guy. It seems that the problem with the nice guy is the fact that I guess he doesn't really have a lot of other useful things to bring. Which would mean that, wouldn't that kind of suggest that the woman herself also isn't a nice person? Only trying to have sex so she can get something from some guy? Whether it be validation, money, status, or career opportunities, the long and short of it is she's still trying to trade sex for something. Because if sex is a casual thing that you can do with anybody, why can't she just do it for the thrill and the fun of it with the nice guy?
I think this is how a lot of kind of the weird, I'm not calling all incels rapists, but that's how a lot of weird rapey stuff happens in streamer communities, where it'll be like, I bought a hotel for you, I bought airplane tickets for you, and you float to this convention to meet me, and you're not fucking me. Like, what the fuck? I was being so nice and considerate. And it's like, you weren't really being a considerate person at all. You're just trying to do things to like the person. I don't think that a lot of people that haven't spent a lot of time building social skills around other people are in general considerate. I actually think being considerate is one of like the rarest like personality traits. I think that people are generally pretty self-centered, pretty self-absorbed, not like in a horrible, evil, mean way, but they just generally don't have an understanding of what's going on with other people around them.
Now, that was a hilariously brief excerpt, and he wasn't really saying much of anything. But the reason why I wanted to pick this out and highlight it is because people say that phrase really casually. Or people have that projection of nice guys very casually. So much so that it's a lesser point and a greater point. What Destiny's greater point is that having consideration and being honestly interested in the person that you're talking to is going to go a long way. Sure. That's how it probably should be. But as much as my dating experience has shown, not when you're a nice guy it doesn't. Which is kind of the whole problem. It kind of becomes a bit of that Ouroboros that starts eating itself. We're talking about nice guys here. We're talking about the fact that nice guys aren't very successful. But the very traits and attributes that Destiny says are going to make you attractive or work very well are the traits that make up a nice guy. But instead of just saying that, Destiny then has to go back, or actually has to introduce the topic, by saying that nice guys aren't actually nice guys, they're just kind of pretending to be the case. And if you're genuinely a nice person, it's going to go a long way. The only problem is, the experience for a lot of young men, it doesn't. Henceforth, we have people like Alex getting paid to coach young men to be successful in dating young ladies. In fact, Alex, a little bit earlier in that conversation, does indeed call this out, so I'll give him a little bit of respect.
Largely insignificant is be considerate and be genuinely interested, because I think a lot of these incels are already very considerate and they're already like trying to be genuinely interested. So I don't think it's like these like assholes who are like LARPing around as incels. It's generally like very sweet guys who are just it's like you look at the guy, he's like, he's so sweet, he's so nice, but the girl's like, I would never him.
And so the issue is not that these men aren't genuine, it's that from Alex's point of view, that these men aren't masculine. And of course, I have disagreements there myself, but it is still good to see that pushback. And that these men aren't inconsiderate, selfish individuals, as even Destiny wanted to sprinkle in, as if most people are kind of inconsiderate. That's actually not really true for the most part. Granted, there are people who are selfish, certainly, but in relations between men and women, men are overwhelmingly selfless and overwhelmingly more investive, if that's a word, to women. In fact, I can give you several examples. In fact, let's do that.
So last night I ended things with a guy that in one of my previous videos I had referred to as the most intentional man I've ever spoken to. It really does suck because he truly is amazing, has a lot of the things I'm looking for in a person, but we hung out like 6 or 7 times and I just wasn't feeling it.
I went on a third date a couple weeks ago, and after the date I had told my sister, this guy is so sweet, but he's not the one for me, and I feel so bad. And I told her this story, how when he picked me up for the third date, he had this wrapped up bagel. I'm going to put a picture right here. He had this wrapped up bagel because he had told me beforehand that he's from the East Coast and there's this amazing bagel shop and they have the best bagels in the world, and like on and on and on about it. And I was like, oh my God, I got to try this bagel. His mom had sent him a dozen bagels and he froze one for me to save for our next date so I could try one.
I'm going to say something, and this might ruffle little feathers. I don't think just being a good man is enough to stay in a relationship with them.
But when I say a good man, I mean like he's good. That means all around. That means himself, spiritually, mentally, physically.
That's great.
Healthily, like he's a good man.
That doesn't mean that he's the man for you. And
right.
Maybe when you're going through these motions of getting to know him, you're realizing, okay, he's a great person, but honestly, I don't fuck with his humor. Like, he could be funny, but he's not funny to me.
And that's why a lot of modern women are getting 40 with 4 cats and no man, because
maybe that's what
he's a good man, but because he's not funny, you gotta throw that out.
Now, I can do this all day and all night, but I'm not going to, because then that would make the video even longer than it probably really needs to be. The point is that being nice, being considerate, and investing in women does not endear them to you if you do not have the spark or the X factor that they desire. Again, those are only 3 videos that I could remember to find. I'm sure I could find more on TikTok if I really invested and really looked for it. But there are plenty of women who talk about how they've met all these different nice guys, these sweet guys, these good guys that don't have the spark. They don't have the je ne sais quoi that is required to rustle their jimmies. Hence the confusion, hence the frustration, hence why so many young men are trying to figure out what the flip is going on. I opened up this video with a question, and I'm going to answer it. Why isn't it okay to be nice to have sex? The answer, I think, is rather simple. It's because having sex is not a casual act. Having a long-term relationship is not a casual thing to do. And simply being nice and considerate is only one facet, one part of being in that long-term relationship. You do need to be courageous, being able to speak your mind. You do need confidence, self-assuredness, knowing your skills and abilities. And you need, more than anything else, to be virtuous and have integrity and stand for what you believe in. These are just a few of the ingredients that are required. Another ingredient that is needed for a long-term relationship or a good one is high levels of agreeableness, being able to problem solve and come to good solutions. The point is, being nice isn't the end-all be-all of a relationship, but as it being a start is pretty reasonable, because no one starts any relationship they have just being a real dickhead. There's always some type of kindness or some type of veneer, some type of representative that you put forth in order to show the person that you're interested or to make the other person comfortable. That's just being in a society. That's actually not out of the ordinary, and it's not even wrong or evil. The problem is if you maintain this veneer, you maintain this facade deep into the relationship until you make the person comfortable, so then you can change on them and then start mistreating them. Obviously, that's the subterfuge, that's the villainy, that is the problem. However, simply being nice at the start is something that everyone should expect and find to be reasonable and should appreciate more than anything else. Even if you expect it, still appreciate people being nice. But that shouldn't be the only reason why you have sex with someone. Why? Because this is the method in which we make people. This is a very intimate bonding act that can also occur as well. And as such, it needs to be handled with care and seriousness. That's why you can't just be nice to have sex. But here's the thing. By that same token, we should be able to say you shouldn't be able to have sex just because you're attractive. And we shouldn't be you can have sex just because you have money. And we shouldn't be able to say that you can have sex because you're willing to fly a woman out or because you have the spark or the X factor. In other words, from start to finish, if being nice shouldn't be enough to have sex, none of these other attributes should be either, because sex isn't a casual thing that you just do willy-nilly. It's something that can have very dire physical consequences. What's so interesting to me is so many people can see clearly that being nice and pretending is wrong and bad, But by that same token, no one analyzes the fact that being shallow and being manipulative of all those other elements I said are baked into courting women, or not even courting them, but just having sex with them. There's so many different nuanced things here. And that is, the nice guy acts the same way as the high value male. He acts the same way as the bad boy archetype. He acts the same way as any other person who has a first meeting with someone, with kindness, with reasonability, with some type of front. The difference between the nice guy and the high value male is clear. One's got resources and looks, the other, not so much. And even if it isn't that simple, one has a negative perception of his behavior, the other, even though the behavior is the same and should still hold the same negative perception, has so many other positive attributes, it's glossed over. Even if that high value male bad boy archetype guy is going to be the very person that still has sex with women and abandon them. In other words, everything that we keep on putting and saying is wrong about the nice guy isn't actually what's wrong with the nice guy. The whole system, once again, from start to finish, is bullshit. And that will then lead us into our third video in the series, where I will be revisiting an old friend of mine by the name of Hunter Avalone. So with that being said, I sort of hope you guys got something out of today's video. And if you did, go ahead and click the like button. And shoot, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Comment in the comment box below. And as always, you guys have yourselves a great day. I'll see you cool cats soon. Adios.